Yo, what's up? What's
What's
up,
up,
Stream Monsters?
guys?
Welcome to episode 2 of us rambling and talking about random stuff because there's really no structure to this yet.
We're
We were going
figuring
to
it
have
out.
Arm on tonight, but it's a little busy. So it's just going to be Brett and I talking. Maybe we'll disagree on something.
That would
That'd
be
be
nice.
nice. I'm going to try and keep the time down a bit this time to about an hour. So we're not talking forever. Because it seems like a lot of people watch the YouTube that you uploaded, Brett.
I actually haven't checked, but that's cool.
Well, a lot
I've
of people
yeah.
were commenting on it after the fact.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I definitely got a lot of people tweeting being like, "Oh yeah, that was really interesting," or like that made me think about things, or et cetera, et cetera. So I was like, "That's pretty cool. I'm glad."
Yeah, I'm glad too, since that was kind of off the cuff stuff that's been bothering me for a while.
Yeah.
Um, so this week, it kind of a good follow up to I think what happened last week. Something got dropped in our lap.
Yeah.
The like coming right off of that, it seems like Machibu made a blog post about improving in fighting games, and I think
Uh-huh.
Minami made a couple tweets about it as well, commenting on it. And it's really, 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 really good. Like this is really good stuff.
Yeah, it was I posted on Twitter too, and I think it's just like it's funny because I there were a lot of people from not anime fighting games at all, obviously, because it's not like this is really specific to any real one genre, but it was pretty interesting that I noticed a lot of Smash people talking about it too, which was cool. And I think it even
Yeah,
got cross reference to some Smash board as well. So that I was like, yeah, that makes sense.
yeah. I think a lot of this stuff applies to a lot of people that I've uh, have had the pleasure with interacting with in the fighting game scene,
Hmm.
and myself as well when I first started out. Um, like I really can't explain to you how bad I was at the very beginning, and my mindset was terrible. And I I don't know. I wouldn't say I wasn't improving, but I wasn't winning when I thought I should have been winning. And God, when the hell was this? It's probably back in 2009. I think is when I really started to get um, in the fighting games because I played, but I don't know. I helped run a tournament or whatever, but I kind of wanted to improve. So um, I can't remember when it happened, but I was on the ride home with Hanaki. I think this is a legendary name at this point since he doesn't really exist anymore in the fighting game scene. Do you know who that is, Brett?
Who?
Hanaki.
Oh yeah, Hinaki. I mean, I know of Hinaki. I don't think I've met him though.
Yeah, so he's kind of a legend now because I think he was the one who leaked uh the Street Fighter 4 like Super Street Fighter 4 roster or something. Didn't he do that?
I don't remember.
I
I'll
can't
I'll go
I
along with
can't
that though.
remember.
That's
He leaked a roster. He was like a pretty good SRK forum troll. And on top of that, he lived very close to Kyohei, Marlon Pai, as most of you know him. And he played Potemkin. And he was pretty good just because he always played against Kyohei. And he also played against Camillo, who was the sole player back then at the time. So he was solid. And I think one day I went up to his place. I went super out of my way. I pretty much drove an hour and a half in the opposite direction to go pick him up to go to a gathering.
hmm.
And I got bodied a lot at the gathering. And on the way driving him back, I was like complaining about how I couldn't win and I wasn't improving and my character sucked and Potemkin was the greatest character ever. and pretty much it. I think a lot of new players fall into this theory fighting black hole where they constantly theory fight against themselves. So they'll bring up a situation, you'll bring up an answer to that situation, then they will either say you're wrong or theory fight back at you, and you just go down this constant hole of not listening, pretty much. Like you're not listening to the advice that's being given to you. And that was like one of the first things said in this. Well, I don't know if it was one of the first things said in the actual blog post, but it was one of the first things on the list. Doesn't listen to advice, thick-headed, close-minded.
Yeah.
And I think we've all run into this. I'm sure you have, Brett, living in NorCal.
Yeah.
East Coast is okay. We've had our people, but they don't stay around very long because they just don't improve and they stop playing. Um, I'm trying to think. So one of the things, don't listen to advice. I think that one bothers me the most. I think out of everything else on here, because you're never too good to not listen to advice. I think.
That's true.
I,
Yeah.
so I think this is something that anybody can apply. This is something. No matter who you are, no matter how good you are,
Mm-hmm.
you should always be willing to listen to advice. You should be open minded. Um, like I'm sure not every player on the planet knows all the all the tech or all the system data, and we definitely don't have somebody in the U.S. that probably has 1,000 games played against a single character or something, to the point where you'd know a matchup in and out. So I think accepting advice is something that everybody should apply.
I mean, what I would say is, I've been in my scene for a while now and gone through quite a lot of different games, not just Guilty Gear. And I will definitely say that the players that I see getting better a lot faster are always the ones that are willing to listen and ask questions. Like asking good questions is a really good sign. And I don't really know very many. Well, if you to use your terminology, thick-headed players that really actually got quite strong. And on the other hand, I can definitely list a lot of people that I know that are now considered really good players that were not very good even somewhat recently, but have just improved very quickly through open-mindedness, especially in Exert. I think a lot of like the newer players that aren't OG that got good really fast. I think that you'll probably find that a common pattern is that they're willing to, you know, ask questions and are very open to just trying to figure out how this game is played.
Yep. You gotta. It's really frustrating when you cross those people too, that don't that just don't listen. It's a very simple advice. Like they try and get out of a situation that they can't get out of, or it's like just block. Sometimes the only thing you can do is block, but they always try and do something.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I
trying.
think that's like one of the worst things I have to deal with is just somebody who doesn't listen to advice. Like, it's honestly probably one, sadly, for at least for me, it's definitely one of the least enjoyable experiences is in casuals is when someone
Yeah, it doesn't want to
doesn't
listen.
want to listen. And I hate repeating myself too much. I'm okay with it sometimes, but sometimes I gotta repeat myself like over the course of a year. That's a pretty shitty feeling. If you haven't had to experience that yet, then you should be glad.
Yeah, hold on.
And for those of you guys just
Like
tuning
using,
in, again, this is our little theory podcast about various subjects. But you should definitely drop us a line either in the chat or on Twitter if you have comments or questions, because this is a pretty open format. So if there
yeah.
are ideas you guys want to bounce back and forth, definitely just say it.
Hmm.
We ain't here just to throw words at you guys. It's a two-way street. So
Have this one kind of, I don't think about this, because I don't know. I'm not really as much as I preach it. I'm not like 100%, like winning mindset. So one of the bullets he has prefers weak or troll characters. I don't know if there's anything like that in Guilty Gear.
Well,
There
first of
might be
all,
in other games.
yes, but I think it's important. Let me just say really quick that on the subject, right? So if you guys don't know, we're looking at this theory of improving in fighting games. It was posted on Reddit. It was posted all over the internet this week. So you should be looking at this if you want to follow along with our subject, but hopefully it won't really matter that much. But I think one of the things I should probably preface this entire conversation about this article with is that these are tendencies that have been noted amongst people who have difficulty getting better. And I think the really important thing about this, because actually a lot of people have argued about a lot of these points, is that this is about people who have difficulties getting better, improving, not necessarily being good.
Mm-hmm.
And almost anybody probably who's a big part of the scene will know a handful of people at least who are really good that have lots of these bad habits, or really good but does not have a lot of these kind of improving fast tendencies, which are the second portion, or vice versa. You might know a lot of people who have really good basically like a work habit for improving, but are still not, like, you wouldn't call them really strong. So I think it's important to distinguish that, because like if you actually read like Machabo's blog posts, it's really kind of oriented towards kind of newer players, and like I would say that it's important to make the distinction between these, not to interpret these as like you are good if you are bad if you fall into these categories, you are good. It's actually not that case.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, more like it's literally just improving.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter on skill level necessarily.
Yeah.
It's not talking about a single match. It's talking about improving over a period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And keys. So the reason I wanted to talk about this, I think it's a good segue off of what happened last week, just
Definitely.
going back a little bit.
Definitely.
But this is also something that's bothered me a little bit. It's funny. I should like show you the articles that I was writing on my site that I just kind of gave up on because I think it was too much.
Yeah.
This was one of them. Like practice, And I don't think a lot of people know how to practice effectively.
Yeah, I mean,
in the
I think
game scene.
There's also a pretty common sentiment about people not being good at training mode. I know that I for sure off the top of my head, SKD's definitely tweeted about this too. That basically people are not good at training mode a lot of the time, and that there is actually a skill to training mode, and you can waste a lot of time not being efficient about improving in training mode itself.
Oh, yeah.
Just as a small example, yeah.
Yeah. But I think a lot of it doesn't start in training mode. I think
for sure
a lot of people just have a hard time carrying over things that they should be learning in matches to training mode, or things that they should be noticing in matches and going in the training mode and, giving them those or practicing those same scenarios over and over and over again and trying to find an answer.
Yeah. Though I don't want to get too far away from this specific list, because we should go back to talking about this list. I will say that this is a really good transition point from last week's discussion, in the sense that when we were talking about kind of the difference in arcade culture and the weight of 100 yen, all the subjects, one of the things that if you're an American and you go to Japan and then you start playing games, one of the things you'll quickly realize, for one reason or another, is that you will definitely feel like you are much more pressured to be getting something out of every match, because not only are you paying money for it, I think we talked about a little bit about this last week, but not only are you paying money for it, but it's like you gotta stand back up, you gotta wait in line. There's like other people playing. You only have a limited amount of games, especially if like you happen to like find a really strong player that you're playing against, and like you might not be there. You might only get to play him like once or twice. It's like those kind of things. You'll definitely feel the impact of not being good at just reflecting and all that kind of stuff.
The motivation for me would actually be I get to sit down longer.
Yeah, oh, definitely.
Like when you're good, dude, your legs never get tired because you're sitting down at the cab, man. Shit.
Yeah, we're Americans. A lot of us are not used to actually walking a lot, and being in Japan can often be a toll on your legs because you're just walking like the entire day, every day.
It's funny stuff, but all right. Let's go back to the list.
Yeah.
So too much pride, I guess, is the next one, but I think that goes hand in hand with not listening to advice.
Yeah.
I think this also works against that. It's not that people might not necessarily listen to advice, but they're so good that they don't practice, I guess, like ever. They'll just play a couple games here or there, going the training mode, and then that's it. Like it might just stop them completely from trying to improve.
Yeah, pride is a tough one. I mean, I would even say that. I mean, definitely not listening to advice definitely can be a pride issue, and I feel like just the even though it's only one factor in this list, I feel like pride is a super major point for me. Like, in my opinion, I mean that it's something that can affect a lot of it can affect a lot of things, and I think you could definitely tie in pride to a lot of factors on this tendency list.
Yeah, another. I think. What was I going to say? With pride. Oh, I think I've seen people get worked up about during a match.
Mm-hmm.
I'll use this example for during a match. They will lose to a player that they don't think they should have lost to.
Oh, definitely. This is like number one, in my opinion. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and when people think that, I mean, not only are you putting yourself on a pedestal, you're putting somebody on a lower pedestal than yourself, which isn't good. But if you do end up losing or things are happening during the match, you're not paying attention to the match anymore.
Yeah.
And you're not going to be able to know what you did wrong. You're just going to assume that the other player, you're pretty much going to blame stuff the other player's doing, like they're a scrub, they were mashing. Why would you ever do that? Question mark, question mark, question mark. And I think that was another bullet point. It was blame your opponent. Yeah, often blames the opponent when losing. So I think too much pride and that go hand in hand.
Yeah, like I mean, I think a really good thing we can just do for this list is when we start like just giving some basic examples of mentalities, I think a lot of players, us included, will resonate in some way, shape, or form, either because you've met someone or because you've experienced it. And I don't think that this is something you should necessarily be embarrassed about or afraid to admit to, because I think that's part of being human. I think that it is very natural to have pride. That's a thing, I mean, it's like enjoying winning, right? We all enjoy winning. I mean, maybe some people don't enjoy winning, but that's a very natural emotion, and same with just being prideful. The idea of thinking that you're better than the opponent, and just that thought in its of itself, while it's sort of connected to this list in sort of a negative way, at the same time, it is just kind of what will naturally occur because we're all people striving to become better, right? Like
Yeah.
in some sense, I think that while I agree with this point, I would also say that in some cases, having pride is important. Like being conscious of the time that you've put into the game, you know,
Yeah.
like that has meaning. All the
Yeah, I
people
think
you've
there's a
played.
better word for it though. I wouldn't call it pride, I'd call it confidence.
It's true. Yeah, I mean, it's a slippery slope, obviously.
Hmm.
But my point being that you shouldn't necessarily feel ashamed if you have tendencies, and everyone alive, like we'll all basically admit to, at least in some way, shape, or form, having at least a couple of these. In my opinion, I think it's very rare uh, to be like immune to all these things. Like over time, you can definitely work out what you feel are your like innately weak tendencies and focus um, on eradicating them or suppressing them. That's something that I personally have worked a lot on, and that's probably one of the things I focus on the most. Um, so I could probably talk a lot about that, but yeah, like basically, I'm probably gonna say this many times. I just think it's really important, and I tweeted about it as a follow up to when I tweeted about this list as well, which is that uh, you shouldn't just like look at these and be like, yeah, I have these issues. I knew it. I'm like bad or whatever. But you should be thinking like, okay, yeah, I get angry too easily when I lose to people that I think are worse than me. How do I, what can I do about this? And, you know, how should I move forward if I've recognized the problem? I think that's the most important thing for people to be thinking about.
Yeah. Recognizing you have a problem.
Yeah,
Kind of, swallowing your pride and saying, like, yeah,
like doing
I am
something
doing
about it,
this wrong. Yeah.
Like I think, and this goes for this podcast too. Like you guys listening, like, well, I'm not gonna say that it's wrong to just listen and enjoy this. There's nothing wrong with that, but like, I feel like if you are somebody who does want to get better and you're finding points that we're talking about that resonate with you and are things that you haven't really, thought about as much, that don't just think about it and acknowledge it, but reflect and try and make some decisions, do some things, change the way you're
Hmm.
thinking and take that with you. Don't just leave it on the side.
Yeah, there's stuff every player could be doing to improve. Got to take that first step.
I honestly think that is a big distinction between really strong players and just the average Joe. Is even the average Joe probably recognizes a lot of issues they have, but it's about whether they're going to take the steps to do it or not.
Hmm.
Anybody can be like, yeah, like I should be a lot better at confirming this situation, but only some people are going to go in training mode and put in hours and hours and hours and hours and hours to hammer that out, hammer that dink out.
Yeah. Gotta you gotta really accept. You have to be. I mean, the big thing is open minded, right? Tendency is found in people who improve as open minded and being honest with yourself. That was the second bullet.
Yeah,
So you just don't like deny, like accept or notice that you have a problem and deny it. Like work towards it. Talk about it with your close friends if you're too embarrassed to talk about it with random people or Twitter. Like don't
yeah,
just post about that shit on Twitter. People are stupid. So they're just gonna troll you. But talk about this stuff with like your close friends that, you play with a lot
yeah.
and you wanna improve with and maybe beat. Your closest friends are somewhat of your rivals. You should want to beat them, so talk to them. I'm sure they're down for helping you.
Yeah, I think that talking, just being able to talk to the people in your scene is pretty important, and you shouldn't be afraid about. Like, you might just think that you're just some like random person or whatever, but I mean, I think that any local FGC scene, this is one of the places I feel that as a genre we is one of our strong points, is that we can actually do this kind of stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
everyone's pretty open. We've all been there. No, none of us are gonna. Well, okay, I won't say that, but because people, some of us will, but in general, we're not gonna turn you down or like, no, I
No.
don't really think people really, not that many people really like speak from a pedestal, even if you
No.
think that they're gods or really strong, or you think they don't give a fuck about you or whatever. Like, I think it's not really like that.
Yeah. I mean, what we were talking about was a tendency of people who improve past bullet point objectively looks at their own merits and demerits and overcomes them.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to be able to find a problem, get rid of it. Uh, One thing on here.
Oh, let me just add one more note about the pride thing.
Yep.
While we're on that subject, is
Mm-hmm.
I like, it's also, there are things like thinking you're the best of X character. That is a super
Yep.
super big thing that happens so much, especially if it's like a niche game or a game that's growing. Like, I mean, I don't think, like, nowadays, like, say a game like Guilty Gear, like, it's been fleshed out a lot, so it's like, maybe you don't have, the like, the level is pretty high, so you're not gonna have some random schmo who thinks that they're like, I don't know, like, the best elf out in the world or whatever, right? Like, that's not really gonna happen. But like, some of these other games that are kind of new or not as many people play, and yeah, you might really think that you're just like the best of X character, or maybe not best, but you feel something when you, like, say, see another guy who plays your character. I think that's a really common thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
You might say, "Oh, I play this character," and yeah, you might feel some kind of way when you see someone else playing with your character. And I think a very common mindset is to see them getting. You want to see them be worse than you. You want to see them lose. I think that's a very, very, very common emotion. You want to see them lose. You want to see the people you play against beat them. You don't want you will get frustrated when you see that person beat people you struggle against. I feel like that's
Yeah.
that's a big one.
Yeah, there's that, and then the point you said before where you want to see them lose against people
Mm-hmm.
that you play against a lot,
You want to see confirmation that you are good,
that
basically.
you're good.
You don't want to
Yes.
see proof that you have ways to improve.
Yeah. Everybody wants to be the best.
Yeah.
And
So
how much effort you think you've put into it to deserve that.
yeah. So obviously not
Different
everyone
among
thinks
people.
this way, but I think it's pretty common, and it's a sign of kind of like, it's a little bit of pride, it's a little bit of other things. I think it's a little connected to the why some people want to play weaker troll characters as well. It's all kind of intertwined in there. But yeah, just think about that basically. If you resonate with that, think about that.
And Roroni, um, it's I think a lot of people have your mindset where they do cheer on, people that play your character,
Mm-hmm.
but it's when they're playing somebody that you have played against, things tend to change. Like, if, let's say, you're watching them play in tournament, right? And they're up against your friend that you play against all the time, and you have the hardest time beating your friend. And then you're watching this guy and you're like, he doesn't look that good. Then he completely destroys your friend. Some people look at that match and just go, well, that's bullshit. This guy's not that good. I'm way better than he is.
Because what
My
you're
friend
looking
should have
at
won.
is you're looking at evidence that's basically denying your efforts.
Mm-hmm.
So I think or at least that's one way to interpret it. And so
Yeah.
I would say that the point is that you should not feel, and I think this is very hard. I think this is why this is a common emotion, and I don't really blame anyone for feeling this way. I've definitely felt this way before. Is just like, because in order to not feel that way, you need to have some disconnect from your accomplishments and what you see. The idea is that the time you've put, the effort you've put, what you've done is not going to be dismissed by some external thing, right?
No.
Like if you've spent 1,000 hours in training mode, then whatever you see or hear is not going to change those hours you put in because they're in the past and you're holding that with you. But I think it's pretty difficult for a lot of people to basically separate, their sense of self from what they've put in and be able to, what's the word I'm looking for? Just like to know innately what they've done is right and not be affected by other things. But I mean, I think that's hard because that involves having that's faith, in my opinion. That's having faith in the path you've set, and that is something that I think if you have that trait, that you should really consider yourself fortunate. I think because I think that is a pretty something you have to oftentimes work to achieve. And if you feel lost as a player, that's like a really that's common. I think that's life,
Yeah. It's I think we've covered the pride.
Yeah. We talked about listening
because
to
that one's
advice.
pretty big. Yeah. So one of the let's see, another thing they had patience. Patience is, I think it's something you learn to have over time, or you were raised to have patience. I think some people just will never have patience. I don't know how you teach somebody patience, actually. Like, if I was ever in a car with a lich, he's not going to drive slow. He will never drive slow. So it's like, how do you tell someone to, just, hey, I know you could get this done faster possibly, but you should slow down.
Yeah. Well, this is I mean, I'm probably going to do this a lot, but the you're talking about low patience, right? That point?
Yeah, people that just don't let me think of an exact example that I'm thinking about. So I guess people get frustrated during a match, not necessarily because of other things we talked about, but just because it's like, hey, I want to be hitting this guy now. I want his health bar to be going down now.
Yeah.
So you just block with your face and hold forward.
Yep. It's very, very, very common. I'm going to add on to what Alan said and say that, in my opinion, something to think about is that I view patience as a scale. It's a gradient. It's not like this guy's impatient and this person is patient. It's just a threshold value. It's like, how long are you willing to bear with whatever you don't like? Because there are things that you're gonna like to do and things you don't like to do, and that's just part of being human, in my opinion. And that's part of fighting games, is like, say, like blocking, right? Like you'll hear a lot of people say they like to block, and you'll hear people say other people don't like to block. And I'm not gonna try and discredit what other people say, but I personally feel that it is not so much that those people who say they like to block really actually enjoy, like they feel pleasure holding down back. Though I'm not going to say that that's not true, because I think some people are, but I think a vast majority a vast majority of it, it's not necessarily that they literally feel enjoyment from blocking, but it's like that they don't mind blocking, and they might enjoy just like defense or whatever, but
They
like
understand it's part of the game, and that
yeah,
if they are
yeah,
blocking,
they
then they're not
understand.
taking damage.
Yeah, so I would say it's not necessarily like, because I don't know, like, because if you really enjoyed blocking and I went up to you and said, hey, so like, would you be down if for the next like 6 hours that you just block and I'm gonna play Melia and like you can practice blocking. I just want to practice doing mix-ups. Like, I'm not gonna say those people don't exist, because there are people who probably say yes to this, but not as many people as the people who say they like blocking. You know.
It just sounds like if I invited LK over, it's that's what it turns into. Like, yo, dude, come over. I want to block million mix up for 3 hours.
Yeah, I want to practice blocking.
Yeah, man, sweet. That's gonna be so much fun.
And the reason why I say this is because that's human nature, to want to do things, to want to feel like you can practice things. Not everybody, most people aren't gonna just be satisfied, only focusing on just practicing blocking. So like, this is just my side note about just people who say they like to block, or when you call someone else, when you say that guy doesn't like to block. I mean, yeah, like I've said that, people say that, it's a really common phrase, but what you're really saying is just like that guy has a low threshold for blocking, right? Like, it's not like, and most other people, even if you think they're good at blocking, really like to block as much. It's just a euphemism, but I think it just goes like so this patience thing, right, is not just blocking, right? But it's like Alan expressed that example of like, oh yeah, like you just want to kill them now, right? Mm-hmm. I think this is again kind of tied to pride, in some aspects. Like, you feel like you want that gratification because you think you're better than the other guy. You're better than the other guy. Why can't he just sit there and die already? Like, why do you have to respect his options? I think that's a very common line of thinking. And
yeah.
And probably the number one thing, in my opinion, that is what all of these tendencies are actually just a small aspect of, which is the most important thing to know and to deeply understand, and probably the hardest thing for a lot of people to come to terms with. And the thing that I think is probably the most important thing to get out of fighting games, in my opinion, out of anything, is the idea that the person you're playing against is also a fellow human being. And
yeah, they bleed too. They bleed.
And this may sound, extremely pedantic or what have you, but I think it is an important distinction. I think many people really don't truly respect that the person they're playing against is another person just like them, who's trying as hard as them. And even if they're weaker than you, it doesn't change the fact that they're a person. And sadly, I think that it's very rare, not rare, but it's actually uncommon that a person in the FGC is truly, truly, truly going to empathize with the opponent. And that's, I think if you do, then you should have 0 of these properties. There's no way you'd have any of these bad tendencies other than weird fixation. Sorry. You can definitely you can definitely have weird fixations. But other than that, I feel that a lack of empathy is very common.
Yeah. Let's see, this list is getting shorter, which is good.
Are you like deleting points on your screen? You're like,
no, but I mean, we are covering a lot of points
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of
at the
these,
same time.
you know, they overlap. There's
They,
a lot of overlap.
yeah, which is, I think, it's pretty obvious what makes a player good and how people improve, and things are going to overlap. I mean,
Yeah.
if there were 20 totally separate traits, that'd be crazy. That'd be a little ridiculous. Fighting games would be too hard, pretty much.
Hmm.
One I wanted to go back to training mode. This isn't necessarily on the list, but this is something that was talked about, I think, after it was posted, or possibly even before that. Um, Swimming story. So I think one day at practice, our coach was getting frustrated. You can this I guess this is one of the things on the bullet point, actually. Well, it's two things, I'd say. But when you're in a pool and you're looking at the bottom and the coach gives you a set, you just go. You don't think, you kind of go on autopilot
Hmm.
when you should be concentrating on like a certain point in your stroke, where you're doing a technique drill,
Hmm.
you know? And it's like the whole point of you to be going up and down the pool at this point is to just concentrate on that. And if you're not, then you're just going up and down the pool without doing it.
Yeah.
That's practicing, you know, but practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect, right?
Hmm.
So it's like anybody can go in training mode, like you said, and play for 8 hours. But if they're not actually pulling anything out of it, then they're not improving. They're just sitting in training mode for 8 hours. Like you should go in with a goal.
Definitely.
Um, and this was I think this is bullet point. Hold on. Let's see. Doesn't research stuff. I think this falls in the weird fixations, possibly, because you could be fixated on something that's totally irrelevant and you're trying to find a way around it when it's not important. Um, let's see. More fixated on winning than contents of the match. Prioritizes winning over learning. You could possibly put narrow field of vision in there too. Yeah.
Yeah, someone asked me a
And
question on Twitter about narrow field of
oh,
vision because they were wondering whether it was in reference to literally, or was it like a being closed-minded. So
uh,
I
yeah. So I think narrow field of vision could possibly overlap with closed mindedness, where you can I think some people, it's a fixation issue, right? So it's like more fixated on winning than the contents of a match. So somebody is literally, you're so concentrated on one thing that you forget about all the other things that are involved in a fighting game. Like I mean, one of the most common uh pieces of advice I've heard LK give, and he wrote an article on it, is to look at the screen. And I remember a lot of people, take that the wrong way. They think he's being smart or something, or being an asshole,
mhm.
but he's being like completely dead 100% serious. That it's like, dude, if you just like looked at the screen, you wouldn't have gotten hit by that because that was their only option, right?
Mhm.
Every single time I watch a Street Fighter 4 match and somebody gets hit by EX Messiah FADC Ultra, I just would like hold my head, because I'm like, dude, like as soon as he has 75% meter, it's like you gotta hold back, man. You can't be doing what you've been doing this whole match. You've got to chill for a second, or you're going to lose half your life. And every single time I saw somebody get hit with it because they tried the same mix up like the fourth, fifth time in a row, I think that's like a narrow field of vision. You're not seeing whether or not somebody has 50% meter to dead angle, then you get knocked down and then run back. Another narrow field of vision thing is you're not it's not necessarily vision, but you're not listening to other people. You're just kind of listening to yourself. I think
Mm-hmm.
that goes with, you don't listen to advice.
Mm-hmm.
Narrow field of vision, I think, encompasses a lot of things. I wouldn't take like that literally, other than looking at the screen. But yeah, it's tunnel vision. There's a whole lot of other things going on and a whole lot of other things you should be worrying about just then that one thing or that one point in time.
Yeah, I think
I,
television is actually maybe a better translation for this point because like
yeah.
television in English also has both connotations where we can talk about it both literally and kind of in a mental aspect.
Hmm. Let's see. What else was there?
Likes Wakaran Goroshi. I'm really, really
Ugh,
happy that this is on this list because I can actually use Wakaran Goroshi. It's a term that I don't use because I know that no one knows what it means. But now I can actually use it, and it's great because it's like a single word that encapsulates a pretty important point. It's probably something that I hate the most of like anything in a fighting game is
so
I
yeah,
I have a definitely deep dislike for people who enjoy Wakaran Goroshi. So now I
you
can
know
use
who
this
I
word.
feel. You know who I feel is like that?
What?
Dora.
Dora?
I feel like Dora would fall into
Yeah, I mean,
this
so
category.
this is another point where I actually think a lot of people um, kind of had issues being like, well, these are points that are very important at high level. Like if you're a top player, you need to learn X, Y, Z, right? It's like some people will be like, but Wakaran Goroshi is important, like. Uh, I was actually just talking to about Wakaran Goroshi with GC Yoshi on Wednesday about it because I made a joke about how he loves Wakaran Goroshi and and he was saying, well, Bedman kind of has to use Wakaran Goroshi, you know, in some, he's kind of built for that, right? Which is definitely,
That's true.
it's definitely somewhat true. Yeah, like you can definitely make a strong argument for that. So yeah, I think it's important that we're not saying if you do Wakaran Goroshi, you are bad or whatever. I'm just basically reiterating myself when I'm saying that. Like it just means that we're saying that oftentimes people who are not good at getting better have these tendencies. It's not it's not necessarily causal. It's
Yeah,
correlation, right?
it's gimmicks, right? So let's
Yeah.
just call them gimmicks.
I
So
mean,
there are
no, it's
people
not.
that
It's not. I guess it's gimmicks, but like
I I understand what you mean, but I would interpret this as like gimmicks as far as the U.S. scene is
right.
concerned.
But this is like winning with gimmicks. Like this is like basically. I mean, it is gimmicks because you're just basically abusing an opponent's like lack
Lack
of
of knowledge, yes,
knowledge.
which you should be doing.
Yes, but so yeah. What I'm saying basically is like yes, it is something that's important to utilize, and yes, if you want to be the best, you need to understand how to implement them into your game plan. So we're not saying you shouldn't necessarily use Wakaran Goroshi. We're just saying that it's common to like them if you're kind of like a lot of people who aren't getting better oftentimes rely or really enjoy winning with Wakaran Goroshi. And I think that the difference of Wakaran Goroshi is the fact that you're like winning with it. It's not just like using gimmicks. Like you can use shenanigans, sure. Like people like using shenanigans. I like using shenanigans, but it's not necessarily the same as like liking Wakaran Goroshi, in my opinion.
yeah. I think people that my interpretation of the bullet point is that people get too fixated on trying to do crazy, ridiculous things
No, no, no,
when they
no.
could.
In my
That's the
opinion,
way I
that
interpret it.
okay. I'll elaborate on why I feel. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like let's say I don't know, you're playing like a super gimmicky character.
Hmm.
Like I would almost call Bullet. Well, she doesn't really gimmick. I'm trying to think of a gimmicky
Let's talk about
character.
Leo.
Leo, 80%
Wa-
of the work.
Wakaran Goshi is literally just like killing people with H Rekka and doing H Rekka.
I feel it's more like you're you're bang and you have all four seals and you do that super that pretty much like kills you from anywhere on the screen if you're just kind of standing there. But there's like ways out of it. So there are people that it's like that's their game plan. That's the only thing they know. You know, like I'm gonna get four seals, and by the time I get four seals, you're gonna be down to this, and I'm just gonna use this move. And they're so used to winning with it that that plays against them because they're not actually learning the way the game is supposed to be played. That's the way I think of this bullet point. Like somebody gets so fixated on using a gimmick or gimmicks that they're not playing the game the way it was meant to be played. So when they go to play a good player, they're going to get destroyed, and they're going to be like, "Well, I didn't hit him with my gimmick enough times, so I lost."
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with kind of the latter end. I'm not sure about like your example, but I think it's just like a lot more simple, like just doing, just being Leo and killing somebody because they don't know how to deal with Leo's H
Mm-hmm.
Rekka and they just get hit by it because they don't know what's going on because that's literally what the word means in Japanese. It's,
Oh, well, so
it's killing them while they
it's a
don't know what's
mashup of
going
two
on.
words, right?
Yeah,
This is like a slang term. So what's it a mashup of?
not knowing and to kill them.
Oh, really?
Yes, this is why I'm saying it's less complicated than just like being fixated on a
Okay.
gimmick. It's literally killing them while they don't know what's going on. So it's literally just like being Leo and doing H Rekka. Or like let's say you're playing Testament and you're just gonna block string into back EXTBs over and over and over and over again because the guy is just sitting there and he doesn't know that he's supposed to jump out of it or instant block, and you just
Yeah.
keep doing it and or you do Bedman 6H 1,000 times and you do some like seal mix up that they don't know what the fuck is going on.
Yeah. I understand that. That I should have asked you to translate it for me at the beginning because I know the first part was you don't know, but I wasn't familiar with what the second half was. And I know Japanese slang is very annoying. And sometimes it's like it's not clear on what the word means.
But
Like I
I
think
think your point still stands though. Like regardless,
yeah.
it's like yeah. It's basically it's the idea. It's like that you're not really playing like if you avoid you're avoiding the like having to play that guy honestly basically.
I wouldn't say honestly, but just you're ignoring an important part of the game, such as neutral or defense.
Yeah, those are what I call honest things.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, not killer braver, but just like murder, literally the act of killing someone.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Anyways, okay, so maybe moving on a bit. Oh, I actually really like this one too. Having excess confidence in the ability to read the opponent.
Hmm.
Um,
So you're saying like there are people that they don't have necessarily good fundamentals, but they're just like, yeah, I'm really good at forcing my opponent to do things, making them easy to read. That's how I win.
um, I think it's just the idea that it's the idea that like you think you have really good reads, but then like maybe when the opponent actually reads, like you don't respect it, or you just like think like you're just like really on a higher level of it's kind of just almost like just thinking you're like way better than the opponent, I guess. Like I mean, I feel this point's interesting because it's kind of touching on not really like seeing your opponent as like somebody who can also read or challenge you, and
Yeah,
I think this can trap you into a negative mindset.
No, I
especially
can
when you
I can see that.
especially when you play against weak players. I notice like some people will have kind of a um, fixate on like they're like they think they're really good at reading because all you fucking knew that this guy jumped because he threw that fireball and then you DP'd them and like
Hmm.
damn you fucking knew you were in there but then they can really that can really hinder you when you're actually fighting against someone that's actually like reading as much as you are basically.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, really, basically, yeah. I mean, like, kind of what Blue said, like, when you actually think you're psychic, like, you're actually not. Like,
yeah, you're not psychic. Yeah, you're just. I mean, I think there are different levels to this, but I think there's points where you're forcing somebody to do something, but there's other times when you're just like making a complete guess,
yeah,
like with like bullet snap hands, like that was my favorite move probably in any fighting game. I would do whatever it took to hit somebody with raw snap hands, just because that move's so freaking hype, right? So
yeah,
every single time I would catch somebody like holding up back, I'm like, damn, I'm nice. Like I I read them like a book, and then after a while, people would just stand there, and I would fly right over their head, and they get like a free counter hit punish. I'd be like, that's bullshit. Fuck that guy. Let's see if there's anything else.
yeah. I
Uh,
mean, I think the other thing, just a little bit to add on that access confidence thing is like in the reading is like I think it goes in line with needing that it's important to understand that like when you successfully read someone, it's a battle of you're fighting for it. It's like a tug of war, right?
mhm.
So when you get the read, you're kind of just you it's a struggle, and I think that the idea of somebody who has like excess confidence in that is maybe that they are not so much seeing that as a struggle anymore, but thinking that they are entitled to it.
Mhm.
And yeah, entitlement's
I see
a
that.
pretty big point in this. I mean, I think we could easily summarize these points as just like personality issues and just be done with it too. But it is very nice to have these. Basically, the way I view these are like these are basically examples of things fighting game players do as a result of some of these personality issues that may not be conducive for getting better. That's how I view it.
Yeah. And it's nice that I was written by possibly the best Guilty Gear player right now as well. I I don't like it when people write things and they're good things and then people discredit because they're not good per se. Like um I know there are people that ignore semi good players just because they haven't like won a tournament before, and it's like, well, I mean, having that tournament bling, around your neck means something, but at the same time, I think you can also have a brain and to do stuff at the same time. So it's nice that Machabo kind of killed two birds with one stone, and he wrote something godlike, and he's also a very, 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 very good player.
Hmm.
And I don't know, I don't know who translated this. I don't know how good their Japanese is. Um, did you read the original blog
I
post, Brad?
have it. I've been reading it to double check just now. This was my first time reading it, but it's just it's overall fine. Yeah.
Okay, because I have a
Sorry. The
feeling.
blog, I didn't. I browsed through the blog in Japanese. It seemed fine.
Okay, yeah, that was one thing that worried me. Um,
Yeah. No. I think it's
is I
fine.
feel like a lot of this stuff could be possibly translated incorrectly.
It is a slippery slope.
Yeah. Hmm. I think we're in a good spot. I, I don't think there's anything else I really wanted to get across from this list, unless you had another bullet point that really struck a chord in you.
Mm, yeah. Not really. I think. Did we? I mean, that last bullet point, honestly, is kind of an entire summary for me, which is just not thinking from the opponent's point of view.
Yeah.
Because there is the literal of this, which is like literally when you're playing, like not being able to see that. But first of all, I think that's actually just really hard to do. I think that's another really key aspect to being really, really, really good at fighting games, is actually being able to truly project yourself into their shoes in the middle of a match. It's very hard.
Yeah. That requires like a deep understanding of the other character.
Yeah.
At the very least.
I mean, I think few people really achieve that in a complete sense. I think a lot of good players even are able to say, "Oh yeah, I think in this situation he would do this or that." But basically, being able to mirror yourself in the middle of a match and see yourself responding to your self move is very, 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 very hard.
Yeah.
In real time, I think that's one of the things that is the hardest thing in fighting games. Yeah, no, I mean, so basically, I also think on top of that, in that being like the kind of literal thing, is just like what I said before about kind of just empathy and like understanding that, like, not just their point of view in the match, but the fact their point of view like in life as a person, that they're just like you, and it just goes again back to like all of this stuff. But I think that's a pretty big point. I think a lot of kind of people who struggle at getting better just think that they're the main character.
Mm-hmm.
And I've said this before because I think that's a pretty important point, that the other people are not just scrubs for fodder for your eventual glory. And I think that's all I need to say about that.
No, that makes sense. And I think that's it. I think we're good for right now. I guess next week. Well, are you going to any tournaments next week,
I'm
Brett?
gonna be at Fanime.
Oh, next
which
Friday?
is the best tournament ever. That's not a tournament.
All right. I was hoping maybe we could push this sometime up earlier next week.
Well, let's
see.
We're doing anime podcast on Wednesday, so it can't be on Wednesday. And I don't know if I'm going to be around on Thursday. Aren't you not going to be around on Thursday? Or are you not going to anything? I thought you were going to something.
I'm not going to anything except for TSB next Saturday. But I'd like to cover Combo Breaker, because both you and I have, well, I think everybody now has gotten to see the bracket.
Yeah.
And who's going, and it's going to be a really stacked tournament, and I think it's worth talking about.
I actually haven't looked at the bracket, but since we seeded it, like, it'll be what it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kind of wanted to like talk about that, because I think that goes along the other part of what this podcast is supposed to do, and that's talk about events and news, not just these existential like discussions on how to get better and problems with the scene as far as like character goes, and practice and determination and motivation, all that stuff. Like, Jesus, should talk about get back to stuff that's happening, like Revelator's coming out real soon in a week, right? Combo Breakers next week. Then after that, it's like all these tournaments leading up to Evo. There's going to be a lot to talk about. But okay, if I can do it myself.
Let me just see when Fanime is, because Fanime might be on Friday, which means I could do it Thursday. I just don't remember, because they keep changing the dates. I just don't remember. I don't actually know my own schedule, so let me just confirm it right now. What is May 27th? That's when it starts.
May 27th.
May 27th is Friday. Okay, I'm free Thursday.
Okay, so would you be down to do it Thursday then?
Yeah, Thursday sounds like a good idea. Yeah.
All right, I'm good then. Thanks for... Yeah, there's going to be a stream of the tourney. Keep an eye on Twitter. People are going to be retweeting that a lot. I think... what is it? Somebody already tweeted out the event schedule, I think. Yeah. But okay. That's it for this episode, guys. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah,
Next Thursday, we're probably going to have this roughly the same time, and we'll try and keep it to an hour.
sounds good.
All right. Thanks again, Brett.
Yeah, see you guys next time.